Now, if we can take a look back at the 1991 Land Conference, what are some of the issues that you can highlight for us that government, to a certain extent, was able to implement and not implement?
Well, to start off, in 1991, we didn't have any legislative framework to deal with land reform. So by 1995, the Commercial Agricultural Land Reform Act was implemented, as was envisioned in 1991. In 2002, the Communal Land Reform Act was implemented. Before that, the National Land Policy was implemented in 1998. So in terms of getting the appropriate legislative framework, quite a lot has been done to do that. Of course, with the 1995 Act, the principles of willing buyer, willing seller was implemented or foreseen, plus the concept of expropriation in public interest, land expropriation. During the 1990s, quite a lot was done in terms of to set up the structure for a feasible land reform process. Also keep in mind the affirmative action loan scheme was basically set on path for commercial black commercial farmers to acquire land through the affirmative action loan scheme, a scheme that's been made available through the Agri-Bank of Namibia. In terms of the resettlement policy, to actually implement land reform, it's been a slow process. But in all, acquiring land has not really been the issue. The issue is to empower people who you put on the land. I think that's been the issue. A lot has been said about land expropriation. In terms of the 1995 Act, the provisions are there for expropriation, compulsory acquisition of land. I think it's chapter 4 or 5 of the Act. Provisions are there. It's actually been tested in court in 2008 with the Kessel case.
You also released a paper a couple of years ago, especially focusing on the San. And the question that I found quite interesting in terms of the name of the paper is, who owns the land? And this is what it actually boils down to when it comes to the issue of ancestral land, isn't it? So what's your view on that?
The thing is, with the San in Namibia is a special case because, I mean, they can truly claim indigenous in terms of UNDRIP. The policy that regulates indigenous peoples in all over the world. So the San in Namibia is a special case because they're also referred to as the first peoples in Namibia and in Southern Africa. That's something that we can't argue away.
But how should the issue of ancestral land be dealt with?
The realities of most San people today is that they continue to be marginalized, and a huge part of that marginalization, the fact that they suffer in terms of access to education, access to health, and all of those things is a result of land dispossession over the years. And currently, this is not ending. In post-independence Namibia, some people are still losing land because of authorities looking the other way when people invade their existing land. So that is an issue that we continuously fight in the high courts of Namibia, to see to it that people get their land protected. And that's the way to go.
How do you think, and finally, the upcoming land conference will address outstanding burning issues, such as the issue of ancestral land and including expropriation of land? If you can just briefly conclude that question for us.
Expropriation can only take place against just compensation. If that is not there, then we're looking at a situation where we're going to face economic, socio-political chaos in this country.